Welcome to the deep dive. So, you know the names, right? The tech giants, the space guys, the social media founders, everyone knows them. But today, we're pulling back the curtain on someone else entirely. A kind of ghost in the machine of American wealth, Philip Anschutz. We're talking about a man worth, an estimated $19.4 billion as of this month, September 2025. And yet, he manages to be almost invisible while controlling the actual stages where global culture gets made. Think NBA arenas, NHL rinks, even Coachella.
Yeah, it's an amazing contradiction, isn't it? I mean, we live in this age where visibility is everything. Billionaires are brands. They're constantly in the news. But Anschutz, his whole strategy seems to be absence. His empire controls all this vital infrastructure, huge entertainment platforms, but the man himself, you could walk right past him. So our mission today is really to unpack that. How did he build this? And maybe more importantly, why did silence become like his superpower? We're looking for the hidden architecture, the secret to that kind of unseen influence.
And what's really striking is where he started. It wasn't code or online shopping or some flashy IPO. His foundation was built, quite literally, on the ground. He was born back in 1939, Russell, Kansas. His money came from oil fields, high-stakes drilling, old-school stuff.
Right, which gives him a totally different viewpoint compared to, say, Silicon Valley billionaires.
Yeah.
He took over his family's company, Circle A Drilling, way back in 1961. This wasn't startup culture, It was hard assets, risk management, things you could touch.
And that background, that grit, it led to his first huge win, right? That massive oil find. How did that initial strike shape his philosophy about money itself?
Oh, it paid off big time. His team hit this huge deposit in Wyoming, 1 billion barrels, they estimated, one of the biggest U.S. finds since Prudhoe Bay up in Alaska in the 70s. So boom, that changed his fortune overnight. But the key thing, the sources really emphasize this, is how he saw that wealth. For Anschutz, money wasn't really the prize to show off. It was a tool to buy time, land, and down the road, influence.
Okay, but isn't that just, smart investing, like Warren Buffett buys companies to hold?
It's more the degree of his refusal to be flashy. He just never went for that public billionaire persona. He consciously defined his money as silent capital, something to be kept safe, to grow, and then used strategically, never wasted on just looking rich. There's this great line suggesting he saw every dollar as like a soldier in a long war for endurance, not some trophy.
Wow, okay, that really does reframe it. So while others are using their money to make noise politically or culturally or whatever, Anschutz saw wealth as this quiet engine, a resource that actually gets stronger when you put it into the right, maybe overlooked places.
Exactly. And that whole philosophy really explains his first big strategic move, his first pivot. Remember the oil market crash in the mid-'80s? A lot of energy guys got wiped out. Anschutz didn't double down on drilling. He diversified. He moved into something seemingly boring but essential.
Right. This is where the strategy gets really interesting. He starts buying up these huge, undervalued railroads. The Rio Grande, then Southern Pacific, which later merged into Union Pacific. And back then, railroads were seen as kind of old, slow industrial relics, right?
Yeah, most people saw rust, basically. But Anschutz saw arteries. He got that railroads were the fundamental arteries of commerce. They controlled how everything moved. So he shifted almost seamlessly from controlling the energy source, the oil, to controlling how things get distributed, the rails.
That's a powerful shift. It shows he wasn't really attached to oil specifically. He was attached to leverage points in the system, and he kept going. Huge land deals around Denver. But the real capstone of this integrated approach seems to be founding Anschutz Entertainment Group, AEG, in the 90s.
AEG is like the ultimate expression of that silent capital model, but applied to culture and entertainment. At the time, remember, live entertainment, sports leagues, they were often struggling. Major League Soccer, MLS, for instance, was practically bankrupt. Anschutz saw an opportunity where others saw risk.
He basically saved American pro soccer, didn't he? Funding teams like the LA Galaxy, building stadiums when everyone else was running away.
He did. And the genius of AEG wasn't just buying teams, it was the integration. He built it to own the venues and the content. So they own the stadiums, the teams that play in them, the festivals, the production companies. Think about the Crypto.com arena in LA where the Lakers and Kings play. That's AEG. The goal wasn't quick returns or glamour. It was about weaving these industries together so they prop each other up, making AEG indispensable.
And connecting this huge, very physical empire back to the man himself. His personal invisibility is just, strange by today's standards. He almost never gives interviews. Sources say finding a decent recent photo of him is like a research project in itself.
And his company structure reflects that perfectly. The Anschutz Corporation, it's a private holding company. That makes it effectively an invisible fortress. It's shielded from public market pressures, quarterly earnings calls, activist investors, all that noise.
So he buys himself freedom. Freedom to operate without the constant scrutiny that, say, Disney or Live Nation has to deal with every single day.
Precisely. People who've worked with him often say Anschutz genuinely believes influence grows stronger in silence. If nobody's really watching you or they underestimate you, you're harder to target, harder to criticize. He doesn't have to perform for the media or Wall Street.
Yeah.
And that structure lets him play the really long game, not worrying about today's stock price or headlines.
It creates this amazing paradox, doesn't it? We're obsessed with personal branding now. Everyone needs a brand. And Anschutz's biggest brand is having no brand at all. He refuses to be the show, but he owns the stages for the world's biggest shows.
And that control, owning those stages, leads us to maybe the most fascinating tension in his whole empire. Because Anschutz himself is known to be, well, deeply conservative.
Yeah.
Very traditional, strong faith. And yet, he bankrolls some of the most, let's say, free-spirited, even countercultural events out there.
Yeah, that seems like a huge contradiction. On one side, he starts Walden Media. Their whole mission is films with moral, family-centered themes. Things like The Chronicles of Narnia, clearly aligning business with his personal values.
But then, the other side of the coin, Coachella, built through AEG's subsidiary, Golden Voice. And Coachella is, it's the global symbol of youth counterculture, fashion, secular music, pretty much the opposite vibe from Walden Media. How do you square that circle?
Is it just like keeping church and state separate in his business? Or is there some underlying principle at work?
I think the sources point towards something like disciplined pragmatism. He makes moves based on their potential reach, not whether he personally feels comfortable with the content. His goal seems to be owning the platform itself. Does he need to agree with every song, lyric sung at Coachella? Probably not. He just needs to make sure that culture, whatever form it takes, flows through his properties. His influence isn't about his public statements, it's about controlling the pipes.
So he positions himself right at the crossroads, holding, like you said, both sides of the rope, the family-friendly cinema and the giant messy music festival. By owning the mechanism, he becomes essential to the whole cultural conversation, but without ever having to really participate in it himself.
Right. And that mindset, that long-term, platform-focused view, feeds directly into his ultimate competitive edge.
Yeah.
How he handles crises. This silent, patient approach lets him just absorb hits that would take down others, aiming for dominance later on.
Okay, let's look at that resilience, that stay power, as the sources call it. The 80s oil crash seems like the first big test.
Absolutely. Oil market collapses, his peers are scrambling or going under, and Anschutz doesn't panic. He takes that silent capital he'd preserved and he pivots into those enduring, maybe unsexy assets like railroads. He diversified, insulated himself.
And then there's the MLS story. That's pure patience, isn't it? The league was bleeding cash in the 90s. Investors were jumping ship left and right. Anschutz didn't just stay. He doubled down, funding teams, building soccer-specific stadiums.
Yeah, that was a bet that took, a decade or more to really pay off? Years of losses, just pouring money in. But his willingness to wait, to build the infrastructure, essentially secured the future of pro soccer in the U.S., which is now, a stable multi-billion-dollar thing. He waited for the market to catch up.
And you see the same thing even with something like Coachella, right? That first festival in '99, it bombed financially. They actually canceled it the next year.
Most investors would have said, okay, cut our losses, bad idea. But Anschutz, through AEG, stuck with it. They absorbed those early hits, put in the money and the infrastructure, built it patiently. And now, it's one of the biggest, most profitable festivals on earth.
So when you look at those examples, the oil crash pivot, sticking with MLS, turning Coachella around, the big lesson isn't necessarily predicting the future perfectly. It's more about just endurance. It's brilliance through sheer staying power. He thinks in decades, not quarters. His advantage is simply outlasting everyone else.
That ability to outlast is the stay power philosophy. It comes from building the right infrastructure, managing risk, and using that invisibility shield. You just wait. You wait for the flashy competitors to burn out or get tangled up with shareholder demands or whatever. You just endure.
So wrapping this all up, what's the takeaway? It feels like Anschutz built this kind of invisible crown. In his world, real power isn't about being in the spotlight. It's not about performing for the crowd. It's about owning the spotlight itself. Controlling the venues, the teams, the distribution, the platforms. He makes sure culture flows through his empire, whether anyone attaches his name to it or not.
Yeah, his whole career kind of whispers this truth. It feels really counterintuitive today, doesn't it? that maybe, just maybe, the less you are seen, the more control you actually have.
It definitely challenges our modern obsession with visibility and branding. Maximum influence through, essentially, maximum operational silence and privacy.
Which brings us to the final thought, really, for you listening. In today's world, 2025, everything's hyper-connected, attention spans are short, influence seems tied to being seen right now. So the question is, can Anschutz's strategy, that near total silence, that long-game patience, can it still be used to build something massive and lasting today? Or has the world just shifted too much? Is public performance now the only game in town? Is that blueprint for unseen power now, well, obsolete? Something to think about.